I never imagined that a few simple messages could lead me down a path I would never forget. At the time, I was recovering from my divorce. The apartment felt emptier than it ever had. Nights stretched long and silent. I had started to rebuild my life, slowly, carefully. But loneliness crept in like a shadow. And that's when he appeared. His friend request seemed harmless, a simple hello, with a name that sounded ordinary enough, Ryan Miller. Nothing about him screamed danger. His profile was believable, clean smiles, soft eyes, casual snapshots of coffee cups, beaches, sunsets. Nothing flashy, nothing suspicious, just ordinary, just believable. When I accepted, I didn't think much of it. But soon, messages started to appear. At first, casual conversation. How was your day? What's your favorite book? Simple questions, but he listened. Truly listened. He remembered details I mentioned days before, and it made me feel seen. For someone like me, trying to rebuild trust in the world and in people, this was powerful. I hadn't expected it, hadn't sought it, but I welcomed it. Slowly, the conversations became deeper. Late-night texts about life, dreams, and regrets. He told me he was an engineer working overseas. He described the hum of machines, the smell of metal, the quiet of a city far from home. His words painted a picture so vivid, I almost felt I could step into his world. He called me his light, a simple phrase, but it carried weight. In his messages, I felt hope, warmth, a connection I hadn't felt in years. He promised me a future, not just words, but painted scenes of sunrises together, quiet mornings, laughter spilling across hotel balconies in distant countries. I wanted to believe him so badly that I silenced the small, nagging voice whispering, "Be careful." Weeks passed. We talked every night. He asked about my daughter, about my work, my hobbies. He seemed genuinely interested, and slowly, I started to let my guard down, not realizing that the careful trust I was extending was exactly what he had been waiting for. Then, the first obstacle appeared. He told me that his bank account had been frozen due to a tax issue in his country. At first, he only hinted at it, unsure of what to do. I offered to help. He resisted at first, politely, with the pride of a man caught in a difficult situation, but eventually, he accepted. That first transfer was small, almost insignificant, but it was a foothold. It was the beginning of a series of manipulations I didn't yet understand, and I fell for it. Each time, a new problem appeared: fees, account verifications, emergency expenses. Each request wrapped in stories of urgency and personal hardship. Every message laced with gratitude, charm, and the occasional vulnerability. And every time I told myself, this is the last time. When he comes home, everything will make sense. He knew exactly how to weave words into the fabric of my heart. He knew how to create an illusion that made me believe he was trustworthy, flawed, yet human. And in that illusion, I found comfort. I remember the late nights, scrolling through his messages again and again, remembering the little things, the way he asked about my daughter, the little jokes, the imagined future. I was falling for a person who didn't exist, and yet it felt so real. By the time I realized I had started trusting him completely, he had created a web so intricate that I couldn't see the lies. Every detail was carefully orchestrated, even the photos on his profile, the places he claimed to visit, the stories he told. He was careful, too careful, and I was blind. But the first true test came when he asked for something more, something bigger. He said he was stranded somewhere overseas, that he needed a larger sum to resolve the bank issue. My heart ached at the thought of him suffering, at the thought of someone I cared for struggling, and I sent it. It was gone the moment I confirmed the transfer. Gone, along with the trust I had built in him. But even then, I told myself, just a few more weeks, just a little longer. When he comes home, everything will make sense. Little did I know, the moment I sent that money, the illusion was already beginning to crumble. Then, one night, the messages stopped. No good morning, no how was your day? Just silence. My heart sank immediately. I tried calling, texting. Nothing. I checked his profile. Deleted. Vanished. Just like that. The man I had come to know, the man I trusted, the man I believed in, gone. After Ryan, or whoever he really was, vanished, my phone felt heavier than ever, like it carried the weight of something lost, something I'd been deceived into trusting. I stared at the blank screen for hours, waiting for a ping, a message, anything, and there was nothing. My heart raced every time the phone vibrated, only to be met with disappointment. I replayed every conversation in my mind, every promise, every compliment, every "I love you," typed with care. Suddenly felt like it had been carefully scripted to manipulate me. The images he had sent me before disappearing, blurred faces, scenic backgrounds, all meaningless now. He was gone, leaving me with memories that felt like ghosts. I didn't know where to turn. I didn't know who to trust. Every text, every email, every memory of his voice was tainted by doubt. Had any of it been real? Or had I fallen in love with a perfect illusion? I joined online support groups for people like me, groups for victims of online scams, catfishing, and fraud. The stories were endless. People sharing heartbreak, financial loss, humiliation, and anger. Reading them was both comforting and horrifying. Comforting because I wasn't alone. Horrifying because I realized how carefully these scammers operated. How many people had fallen for the same tricks? How many hearts had been broken, unseen? I spent days reflecting on the moments that had led me here. I thought about the little signs I had ignored, the small inconsistencies in his stories, the hesitation in his voice during video calls, the way he avoided certain questions. Each tiny detail now seemed like a glaring warning. And yet, even knowing all that, I couldn't stop the ache. Then one evening, the first strange thing happened. My phone buzzed with a notification. A number I didn't recognize, but familiar in a strange way. The same one he had used. I ignored it at first, thinking it might be spam or a mistake, but the notifications kept coming. A photo, then another, and another. I stared at the first image in disbelief. It was him. The real him, not Ryan Miller. Not the charming man who had wooed me with words and promises. This was someone else entirely, captured in a candid selfie. Messy room behind him, hair unkempt, a half-smile frozen in time. The realization hit me like a physical blow. His phone. He had left it unlocked. All the images he had ever taken, never meant to be sent, were now being forwarded automatically to me. Shock, disbelief, grief, all mingled together, a whirlwind of emotions. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I scrolled through the images. Each one revealed a piece of the puzzle: casual selfies, group photos, mirrored reflections, mundane daily life. All proof that the man I had trusted was nothing like the persona he had presented online. And yet there was relief, too. Relief because finally the truth had revealed itself. Finally I had evidence of his deception, evidence I could use to protect myself and others. I sat for hours that night, reviewing every image. My mind raced as I pieced together his real identity. The photos told stories he had tried to hide. They revealed patterns, habits, and truths that contradicted everything he had said. And through them, I realized I wasn't just a victim of lost money. I had been emotionally manipulated. The next day, I began to act. I documented everything. Each photo was saved, labeled, and cross-referenced with the messages he had sent. I contacted the platforms he had used, submitting the images and my account of events. I filed a report with the authorities, providing every piece of evidence I could gather. For the first time since the scam began, I felt a sense of agency. A small spark of empowerment flickered inside me. Karma, in some strange, quiet way, had already begun its course. The accidental photos, his carelessness, his unlocked phone had given me the power to reclaim my story. And then the messages came. Not from Ryan Miller, that persona was gone forever, but from him, the real man behind the mask. Panic dripped from every word. He realized what had happened. His phone had betrayed him. He began begging, apologizing, trying to explain. Drunk confessions, rambling justifications, desperate pleas. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he typed. "I never wanted this. It was a mistake. My phone." I read the messages and my chest tightened. I wanted to scream, to tell him exactly what I thought, but I didn't. Instead, I felt a quiet satisfaction. He had been exposed. Karma had caught up with him, not through my actions alone, but through his own carelessness. I spent the next few days reflecting on everything. On the late nights spent talking to a person who didn't exist. On the trust I had given freely, the money I had lost, the emotional investment that had been wasted. On the accidental photos that had become the key to understanding, the evidence I needed to report him and hold him accountable. Through this process, I realized how carefully scammers operate, how easily trust can be manipulated, how meticulously they craft personas, and how deeply they can invade someone's life without physical presence. And yet, I also saw how fragile their facades could be. One unlocked phone, one accidental mistake, and everything crumbled. I thought about the lessons I had learned, about the importance of vigilance, skepticism, and self-protection, about how heartbreak can be weaponized, about how easily we give away trust when we are lonely or hopeful. And then, finally, I allowed myself to feel something I hadn't felt in months. Closure. Not the closure that comes from confrontation, but the closure that comes from truth. I had the evidence. I had taken action. I had survived. The scammer continued to send messages, pleading, apologizing. But I no longer needed them to be heard. The truth was in the photos. The truth was in my documentation. The truth was in the justice I was pursuing. And so, I turn to you, the viewers. If you've ever been deceived online, if you've ever trusted someone who turned out to be a fraud, know this: you are not alone. Karma doesn't always arrive in the way we expect. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, unexpectedly, through a mistake, a careless slip, an unlocked phone. But it does arrive. Share your story in the comments below. Tell us what happened to you, how someone tried to fool you, how you were hurt, how you survived. Your story matters. Your experience can help someone else. And most importantly, make sure to follow Scammers Karma. They expose scams, reveal manipulations, and provide the knowledge you need to protect yourself from people hiding behind screens. Every story, every warning, every lesson is a step towards safety. My story, the story of trust, betrayal, heartbreak, and an accidental picture that revealed the truth, is now complete. It's a reminder that even in the darkest moments, the truth has a way of finding its way to light. That even in heartbreak, we survive. And that sometimes, justice arrives quietly, through the most unexpected means. The lessons are clear. Protect yourself, stay vigilant, and trust your instincts. And remember, even the smallest mistake can reveal the truth and bring karma full circle.